Hey, welcome back to The Dive. Today on the show, we have the president and CEO of Trillion Energy, Arthur Halleran. Arthur's going to answer some of our questions about the global oil market, and he's going to give us an update on Trillion Energy, from their latest production results to what investors can look forward to as we enter 2023. Hey, Arthur, welcome back to The Dive.
Yeah, it's nice to be here.
So let's begin with global energy markets. Putin signed a decree that bans the sale of Russian oil to countries with an oil price cap, which is beginning on February 1st. What impact do you think that this will have on the global oil market?
Well, what's going to happen is that it'll cause the price of oil to actually increase, because the amount of oil that Russia is not going to sell or the country's going to pick up has to be filled from somewhere, and there'll be a shortage of supply, and which is good for us in Turkey because part of our pricing index is based on the price of Brent oil.
Several governments across Europe have imposed windfall taxes on energy companies this year. What are the unintended consequences from these types of policies?
So what will happen is that the companies will stop the exploration and they will not carry on with the projects, because they will realize that they're just going to be basically making money for the government, and the economics do not look as good for them. And then ultimately what will happen is that there'll be less oil and gas discovered, produced, and put on stream.
OPEC announced that they will continue to restrict supply by 2 million barrels per day, a policy that will run through to the end of 2023. How significant do you consider OPEC's announcements?
Well, I mean, if they keep their supply, tight, it'll keep the price of oil up. And if it's like not enough oil out there, it'll also increase the price of oil for everybody.
WTI recently rose above $80 per barrel, the highest level in 3 weeks. Some say that this is due to China's latest easing of COVID-19 restrictions. How closely should we be watching China in regard to global oil markets?
So China is a very large economy, and so when they stop producing and stop their industry slows down, the price of oil goes down because their consumption is less. And if they have given off or stopped the COVID restrictions, there will be more people traveling, more people doing things, and more consumption of oil and gas, and that will increase the price of oil and gas.
Okay, now let's move on and talk about Trillion Energy. You recently published your November production results and revenue for the SASB gas field in Turkey. Can you walk us through the results, and how sustainable is this?
So we have our first production, and that's for the month of November. And so the first well we put on was on November 4th, and the second well was about November 24th, in that range. And we are producing over 1.2 million per well. So for that month, because we only had one well fully produced, I forget exactly the amount of money, but it was like 1.5 million US for that month. For the month of December, because both wells are on and the increase is we slightly increased our production, we're expecting to produce maybe $2 to $2.4 million US a month for that, for those two wells. And every well we put on production will give us another $1 to $1.5 million per month, which then means we start generating a lot of revenue. And just for those two wells, we predict that we'll be in the range of about $34 to $36 million US for the year, just from those two wells. But we have 5 more wells that we will be drilling and putting on production.
How do you plan to deploy the cash flow from your initial wells?
So the way we worked it was we actually raised $42 million Canadian, so it's $30 million US. And that would pay for predominantly most of our program A, And the revenue from those wells, as we put them on, will allow us to be self-funding for additional drilling for Program B, so another 10 wells, because it works out to about 3.4, maybe with all the other ships and so on and everything, the $4 million US a month to drill wells. And when we start producing 4 to 5 million US from our existing revenue, we'll be self-funding, and we'll just keep using that money to keep drilling. And we have enough locations to go until about 2024.
Turkey's president, Erdogan, recently announced that an additional 58 billion cubic meters of natural gas reserves were discovered in the Black Sea. Does this news have an impact on Trillion?
Yes, it does have an impact on Trillion because we're actually in the Black Sea. We're within roughly the same sequence of rocks. The SASB are smaller targets, so all of SASB, you're talking, 150 to 200 BCF, billion cubic feet, whereas the new discoveries, you're talking trillion cubic feet. But what it does, it shows that the basin has evolved and generated a lot of natural gas. And that allows us to now start looking at some of the exploration around our block for larger targets. So it actually really helps us a lot, and also focuses investor eyes onto our company even more.
Before we wrap it up here, for investors who are watching, what should they look out for with Trillion as we enter into 2023?
So what they should look is every well that we drill, we'll be able to put the production on within a matter of days. Every well will be generating $1 to $1.5 million cash flow per month. So all they really have to do is, after the third or fourth well, realize that we know what we're doing. We have like another 10 of these wells, and just look at the revenue and realize the share value is severely undervalued.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for coming on and giving us the update on Trillion. We'll have you back on to discuss further when more results come out.
Great. It's been a joy here.
Thank you so much for watching today. We will be back again tomorrow with the latest in small cap news. So stay tuned by hitting that notification bell and subscribing below before you leave us. Bye.